Welcome to another episode of PG Radio. On this episode of the podcast, I have with myself chartered accountant extraordinaire Rahul Garg with me on this podcast, and what we end up talking about. Well, before I tell you that, let me give you a little brief on him. Rahul Garg is partner at PwC, sitting at the top of the corporate world for as long as I've known him. And I've known him because he's a family friend. I've known him because I've admired the way he thinks and the way he processes and the way he articulates since I was a kid. He's been a very inspirational, a very aspirational force in my life since I was a kid. And in this episode, what we do is we sit down, we talk about careers. From a man who's aced the corporate world for as long as I've been alive, I ask him, Uncle, how does one even think clearly about what career to choose? And what he does is something very brilliant. He has me do an exercise that he has other people do. We do it live on the show. You can do it with us. You can watch me do it. And then he explains to me, and through me, you, how exactly can one get clarity on what career to choose for themselves? And then we speak a little bit about his spirituality. We speak a little bit about what he thinks the world of business, the world of corporates is headed to in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And frankly, this has been one of the it's like a childhood dream come true for me. I've always wanted to talk to him about stuff and the way he thinks, and to bring it on a podcast, man, I love my job. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. See you on the other side.
I'll give you a little background on why I'm going to ask the next question. It's funny because I remembered something else parallelly, but I'll give you a little background. It has always appeared to me, as I've grown up in some vicinity of you, right, that you know enough about these things. And if it has not directly appeared, ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि हम directly बैठे और आपने मेरे को कोई बात बताई हो, तो my father and my mother have told me. And I will put an intro before this so people will know how we know each other. Why and how do you know this? Is it a part of your job, or is this supplementary stuff you're interested in? How do you come across all this information? How do you have an answer for questions I ask?
So it's very simple. It's an experience. It's an experience, and it's being surrounded by the people who play in that zone, who play in that context. So if I'm surrounded by your dad, your uncle, your aunt, your mother, and there are hundreds of people like that, and each one of them have good play, good experience of that, and therefore my ability to absorb from there and their grace to let me absorb and soak into them is what makes me what I am today, to be able to respond to what you ask. I would still not say I would be able to answer, but would be able to respond in some manner.
I know you have to be humble about yourself. I don't see. But very frankly, Uncle, I'm only 28 soon. I'm only 27, 28, and I've traveled around the world. And in that traveling, I've met some of the smartest people in the world. I've gone to universities that people covet to go to. But I'd still say, of the people I've met, of the sample I have, you're still probably 1 percentile of smart people. And so I wonder if it's if I were to look at myself as somebody working in the corporate sector, say particularly in the company that you work in, is this going to be incidental to my job, or is this a curiosity-driven enterprise that has led you to this place?
No, I think it's ancillary to the job. And second, it's not so much curiosity regarding the context of the job. It is more a curiosity to see how the societies work. So a curiosity to deal with the situation in the job in a corporate sector would perhaps not create an interest in me to look at some of those things. But a curiosity to understand how society works, why society is the way it is, how could it improve, what can change, why it is not changing, what is the simplest way of changing it, etc. Curiosity around that has given me some courage to talk to people, to soak things about that and synthesize it in certain manner.
And were you always like this in your 20s, or is this something you've developed as you've grown?
And this I remember very distinctly. My mother used to say that I'll get all these small kids, 4-5 years kid when I'm same age, all the kids from the colony come at my place. And then I'll talk to them, interact with them, share my toys, ask them few things, and they will just roam around in the house. And then suddenly I'll see there are too many of them. And then I'll say, bheed ho gayi, crowd ho gayi, let them go away, right? And then I'll say, go away. And then I'll ask mommy, why did I ask them to go? Why couldn't they sleep with us? Why did they have to go back home? They were so happy at our place. So I always thought that since childhood I had something where I wanted to see more people happy around me. And that is what I carried in my profession. That is what I carried subsequently in my life. Also to see, how do I see more people happy around me? What can I do for them? And with the means, as a person, as one individual, you can do only so much.
Right, right, right.
And that's the part of the curiosity to understand that and to see if you can make a difference.
Interesting. Do you think the questions, जैसे for instance अभी हम बात करें society कैसे better होती है, is that a direct relation to लोग मेरे around happy कैसे हो? Is that the curiosity
Yeah,
bridge?
absolutely.
Right. And what have you found? Because from where I sit, मेरे को अब वापस इंडिया आए हुए 6 साल हो गए. 6 साल से मैं इंडिया एज अ टूरिस्ट आ रहा था, राइट? एंड आई वुड लुक एट इंडिया इन अ वेरी कंजम्पशनिस्ट फैशन कि मैं इंडिया आया हूँ, इन सड़कों को कंज्यूम कर लो, इन यादों को, इस फैमिली को, इस फ्रेंड सर्कल को. नाउ आई एम बैक and now I'm evaluating the future of India for the first time in, let's say, my late 20s. So with a slightly more mature lens. And I'm thinking and I'm asking constantly, has India moved in a certainly better direction, or has India moved in what looks like a better direction, but we are not sure if it's a better direction?
So I think it's one is that you look at the data for this. The other is that you experience this, right? So what has been your experience if you compare 6 years ago and now?
You're playing better cricket.
Right.
That is what I will say.
So you're playing better cricket. Not only you are playing better cricket, your maid is dressed better than they were before. Her health is better. Your gardener's health is better. Their families are better. They sport a motorcycle today than they were doing 6 years ago, 15 years ago. They had a TV at their place. Their families taken reasonably good care. So I would say that I experienced that. That people around me generally are not as miserable as they were before. It is a comparative misery, this is one aspect of it. But being miserable because your basic needs are not met is another aspect of it.
Yes.
Right.
So वो बड़ा painful aspect.
वो बड़ा painful aspect to any person as a human being, even if you are not related, even if you don't have any other emotion or sentiments. But if you see somebody in pain for the reason that he doesn't have even basic amenities or basic needs be satisfied, that's really painful. I see that being much less now than what I used to see 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I see it is improving day by day. The aspect where it is still slipping away or maybe becoming more stark is the aspect of the comparative misery. Not necessarily being miserable because of
Lack of
basic things, I would say.
Right. And comparative misery being my neighbor is doing better than me and therefore I'm sad.
Right.
Which there is no cure to. जितना मेरे को समझ आता है, I think वो एक psychological phenomena है purely.
Yeah, it's a psychological, emotional, whatever you call it. But
Right.
that's a phenomena that virtually rules the world today. My neighbor is doing better than me.
Guys, my first book just came out and I'm taking 1 second to interrupt your viewing to tell you about it. This is the first book I ever wrote. It's available on Amazon. It's called Don't Shut Up. It's a cheat sheet on how to handle the social world between your 20s and your 30s and what to do in situations where you might otherwise be confused. Go check it out. Tell me what you think.
Some might even say that the spine or the backbone of what has built modern civilization, say centering itself in the United States, मैं तो उसको और I will localize it and say New York City as the Mount Olympus of modernity. The very phenomena that drives that entire city is envy, is jealousy, is this desire for ungodly material consumption कि भाई सब ही दे दो मेरे को, सबसे महंगे से लेके सबसे सस्ते तक का. और अमेरिकन इकोनॉमिक थिंकिंग, पॉलिटिकल थिंकिंग का भी बैकग्राउंड थॉट यही है कि आप लोगों को कंपेटिटिव फील्ड्स में डालो, लोगों को फील करने दो कि वो कम कमा रहे हैं, वो ज़्यादा कमा रहे हैं, एंड दे विल ऑटोमेटिकली प्रोड्यूस इनोवेशन एज कॉम्पेंसेशन, राइट, फॉर दैट फीलिंग. So on some level, this deeper sort of psychological feeling of not being enough produces more than enough. Do you think that's a reasonable way of looking at the world? Because my view is that the Indian thought, on the other hand, says yehi to sara, like this is the burden on your atma, ye envy, ye comparison. What do you think about that?
So I think there are there are points of view on this, but my points of view on this is very simple. That what drives you? What drives you, is it external factor or internal factor? So would you do an innovation because you want to compete with somebody, or would you do an innovation because you want to make a difference to somebody?
Do you think making a difference to somebody is that motivating?
Now that's a personal choice. That's a personal attribute that you could have. Whether making a difference to somebody is more motivating to you, or whether competing with somebody is more motivating to you. And that's what makes a driver being different from one person to another. So I would say that an innovation, and I can give you my own example here. So as a part of the organization where I work and the role which I play, which is mainly in the area of taxation. And as you see that typically the tax consulting job is considered to be one of the most notorious jobs.
Why?
Right, because you help people save taxes, and that save taxes becomes
You made a
avoid.
difference. You made a
avoid,
difference to
avoid
somebody's life,
taxes,
huh?
right?
Huh.
Now, now there within that milieu, there was an opportunity for me to work in some project, and in that project, I could make a difference to hundreds of thousands of people who are the taxpayers of the country by suggesting something which subsequently became policies, etc., etc. And doing that job was very satisfying. Until I did that job, I wasn't sure that what is that level of satisfaction, right? Because I didn't know, I didn't experience that what is the experience of making a difference.
But Uncle, I am imagining कि this happened fairly recently. 5-7 साल पहले?
About 15 years back.
15 years ago also, you had kids.
Yes.
You had friends who you'd help through very tough times.
Yeah.
You've had a marriage that has lasted this long. You've had all these aspects where you've
Yeah.
made a difference.
Yeah.
But you still think this satisfaction was superior?
This satisfaction was far superior because of two things. One, the scope of it. It made a difference to large number of people I couldn't have imagined. I can always imagine.
Is there a number to this? So we can...
So there would be all taxpayers.
all taxpayers in the country.
Right, all taxpayers.
Acha.
Right. So I could never imagine that there's something I could do which would make difference to all taxpayers in the country. So making a difference to an individual known is one part. Making a difference to few individuals known. Making a difference to an individual not known to you as a stranger. And making an individual difference to the community, to large number of people, all of whom are not known to you as a community.
Right.
Right. None of you individually know.
Right.
Right. But you still made a difference to them. And the satisfaction on that is very different. And until I experienced that, I couldn't have even programmed myself or planned myself to get that experience.
Bilkul. Unless you'd experienced it, there is no way you know what that feels like. So there is no way to move towards it.
Yeah, there was no point A I could define in those terms.
Right. But my suspicion is, were you like, इसको मैं were you नहीं बोलता, मैं इसको general ले जाता हूँ. आपको ऐसा लगता है क्या ये motivation at say your 50s or your late 40s or you know whatever age you were in at that point is more reasonable, and in your 20s people are motivated by other things? Because अगर मैं एक बहुत ही commonplace understanding लूँ हमारे 20s और late teenager ecosystem का, तो आदमी competitive exam दे रहा है. The word competition's in it and the whole motivation is rank लाना है, pass होना है, फलाना ढिमका. उसके बाद job पकड़नी है, तो I'm competing against n number of people. उसके बाद promotions लेने, I'm competing against n number of people. It seems like competition's right in your face, and this grand, beautiful idea of satisfaction is still pretty elusive.
No, so I would say what you said as a competition, that's a competition to achieve that grand, beautiful idea of satisfaction. So if you're competing to become an IAS officer because you want to make a difference to the district, which is in the remote Bihar or in Bastar or in Madhya Pradesh, then that's the idea. That's the satisfaction you are seeking. But the fact that you need to compete among 250,000 kids, that's a process. So what is driving you? What's driving you is becoming an IAS officer to make a difference to that. Becoming an IFS officer and making a difference to the country's foreign policy. Now that's the driver. The fact that you're competing with 250,000 people, that's not to my mind, that's not a driver. Right. So,
Right.
so while we are looking at competition being everywhere in all these steps that you take, even the red light when you cross,
जल्दी निकलने की भीड़
जल्दी
तो है,
निकलने की भीड़ है,
हाँ,
right?
हाँ,
So
हाँ.
वहाँ भी competition है. So,
Right.
but I don't think that is the competition that is driving you.
Right.
You may have a momentary high also that, oh my God, मैंने इसको जल्दी cross कर लिया. But I don't think that's a satisfaction which makes you sleep better. That's a satisfaction which gives you an emotional experience which you have not even thought. एक बार करोगे, दो बार करोगे, कितनी बार करोगे? So I would say that an experience of the kind which gives you something novel.
Would you define an adventure sports as something novel, or am I trivializing your point?
No, I think adventure sport could also be, and particularly when you say that my adventure sport is aimed at something. So I would say that anything that you do, even the sweeper that would come to my place, she would also make a difference. Not only just to her family, in the whole ecosystem. I can tell you, I still have a secretary with me. And in a professional services organization, on one hand, secretaries are fulcrum to run your life.
Right.
On the other hand, they are the lowest rung people in the hierarchy of the organization. Now, my secretary, over the years, she has contributed to make the difference to almost everybody who in the 30 years time has joined my team. And there would be hundreds of those people, young kids who have joined my team. They're settling there, they're progressing their career, they're going through ups and downs. She's the one who is making difference to them. Now, in her role in a corporate organization, in a organization which is fairly standard, how could she make a difference? And you know what? I learned after about 4.5 years of working with her that she didn't have a kid. I always used to wonder why she's so attached. I find something different in her than the other people around me, other secretaries that are around me in the same organization with the same pay grade, with the same empowerment, with the same kind of people.
She's more affable. She's more warm.
More warm, affable, looking forward, looking at what else can I do for him.
Wow.
Right. Now, I didn't know this background of her family, that she didn't have a kid, and maybe that's one reason that she's longing for that emotion.
Right.
And that's why is giving her satisfaction, and that's why she's making difference, and that's feeding into each other. But it happens in all walks of life. You don't need to do something very great and grand to it. But the point I want to make is, whatever you do, what is the bhav behind it? Why do you think you are doing it?
Intention?
Intent about it.
And how does that change the equation?
It changes the equation. Like you said, that adventure sport, right? If your intent in the adventure sport is to say that my intent is to then motivate the people, because that's a new adventure sport which India doesn't play, but I find a lot of people who can aspire to play it in India, and they can make careers in that, and they can generate economy in that, and they can make name for the country for that. And that's my intent. So I want to make a difference in this community, in this society, in this country, with people who are even not known to me. By playing this adventure sport, by creating that mark which people identify with me as Prakhar, who is from India, who did it first time, you know? He's the guy who did it first time, right? So if there is a shooter who got the Olympic medal, then you know there was a slew of shooters who came about. So when he did it, what was his intent?
You mean Rajavardhan Singh Rathore famously, right?
Rajavardhan Singh Rathore. Bindra was the earlier one. Right?
Oh, Bindra was earlier.
Right. So I'm saying those. Now, what was the intent? I create that. Are you creating it to make a difference? And therefore feeling happy, satisfied, experiencing that extra emotion which otherwise won't usually occur to a person?
Right.
Or are you doing it for proving to yourself that I'm competing and therefore I'm better? There's nobody else who is better than this, better than me in the world.
So, should I, as a 20-something sitting in front of you, as now, I think early 60s, am I right in assessing your age?
Yes.
Should I understand कि मेरी लाइफ का एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सॉर्ट ऑफ कैरेक्टर ये होना चाहिए, which is altruism? क्या altruism is that essential? Is that non-negotiable? Like, or is that हाँ ठीक है मतलब मिठाई के लिए बढ़िया है एंड में? Like, because from what it sounds like, tell me if I'm understanding this properly. From what it sounds like, आपका कहना ये कि अगर आपके काम के पीछे एक altruistic, एक selfless, एक contributive भाव है to change somebody else's life, the returns on that are incrementally higher than if you do it for self-consumption, for proving a point, etc.
So I'm saying that because of my experience. But I would also introduce to you that whether or not such altruistic content would make you happy or not, you could discover it yourself.
ठीक है.
And in a way, 20-30 minutes exercise, I propose to do it with you. And you would discover what makes you happy. Do you know today, if I were to ask you, do you know today what makes you happy?
It feels like I'm in a confession room. Somewhat. I can tell you what gives me pleasure, short term. For instance, I've been playing chess forever. More recently, I've fallen in love with poker as a game, and I love it. It gives me immense pleasure. I forget where I am. More recently, maybe since I've finished college, I've never asked myself what makes me happy. I'm more often asking myself, what am I responsible to get done? तो मैं रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फ्रेम के साथ अपनी लाइफ ये करना है, चेक ये करना है, एंड दिस इज हाउ आई मूव एज अपोज टू प्रीवियसली वेयर आई वुड फील लाइक मैं क्या करके खुश हूं, अब मैं उस डायरेक्शन में मूव करूंगा. तो आई कैन काइंड ऑफ टेल यू व्हाट गिव्स मी प्लेजर. I cannot tell you what gives me joy in the grand sense. I think my best guess on what will give me joy is pursuing something difficult and meaningful over a prolonged period of time and triumphing. मेरा ये guess है कि मैं अगर जीतूंगा ना कुछ बहुत, जैसे मान लो अगर मैंने suppose if I was a lawyer and I prepared for a case and I spent enough time and I got it done and then you know the judgment's in my favor, I'd probably be happy.
So tell me, if you're a lawyer and you know that somebody did a murder and you were
supposed to represent him
and you got him freed,
right?
Would you be happy?
That is the exact question why I'm not a lawyer, uncle. This is the exact question I asked my father a very long time ago and I was like, आपके पास जवाब नहीं है मतलब मैं law नहीं करूँगा. I would think so कि because as a lawyer आपको एक preconception लेके ये move करना ही करना है that there is no truth until the courts have argued or you know ordered for it. Right. So I don't know if my client has actually murdered someone. I cannot assume or presume that information because then I'm being a very bad lawyer.
So, but if you know it, I'm saying if you know it.
Realistically, though, I know it.
Yeah, if realistically you know it, would you still be happy living in that frame of so-called tangible protocols,
right,
to prove that it is not the case?
आप ब्यूरोक्रेटिक दुनिया और रियल दुनिया के बीच के डिफरेंस को इलस्ट्रेट कर रहे हो एंड आई एम नॉट श्योर. मे बी आई वुड फ्रॉम द कंपेटिटिव लेंस ना कि मेरे को ये करना है एंड आई वांट टू बी वेरी गुड एट व्हाट आई डू. या बिकॉज ये तो डेड केस था, मैं घुमा के ले आया. बट मे बी ऑन अ सोलफुल लेवल आई सस्पेक्ट आई माइट नॉट. क्योंकि
now consider it. You don't need to just veer around this. Just say the opposite case. Now you were getting to represent the person who was the victim, right? His family.
Right.
And you got them a compensation or whatever.
I would feel so happy.
Right.
That would change.
So now see the change in your face.
Wow, I see your point.
Yeah, right.
how does one then think of...
I tell you,
Huh.
when you said this, I feel so happy. You should take the shot of that versus when you were saying maybe I would be happy.
Right.
Your face was glowing, your eyes were popping.
Huh.
It made so much difference just in this illustration of simulation.
No, because I felt it.
You felt it.
I
right?
felt my face lighten up.
Right.
Because वो तो बहुत ही मजा आ गया. अब तो हमने इनको justice दिला दी. Right.
So now, so I'm saying this is an illustration where whether you are at 20 or you are at 50 or you are at 60, some of these things you would believe that are so foundational are governed by law of, what you might say, law of nature, which is so foundational and common to everything and common to everybody that it is inescapable to be away from that. And it is just that when you are thinking you are away from that, and when you are thinking and loading on that inescapable nature of law, the protocols which are tangible world protocols or man-made protocols, etc., then you at times get distracted. But foundationally, you would still find that in your DNA, it's not only you, even this table, even this mic, even this camera, everything is governed by law of nature.
Huh.
And that's what physicists have been trying to prove for over 100 years now, 120 years.
Since quantum.
But
before you move on, there is a lot that is written about this sort of inanimation, that bureaucracy, या man-made sort of procedures and policies. There are entire writers जिनकी पूरी life का work ये था कि देखो तुम्हें इंसान ने एक नंबर बना दिया, तुम्हारी इंसानियत तुमसे ले ली. और फिर उनके चाहे वो पॉलिटिकल मैसेजेस हो, चाहे वो फिलोसॉफिकल साइकोलॉजिकल मैसेजेस हो, चाहे वो स्पिरिचुअल मैसेजेस हो, वो मैसेज ये था कि भाई लीन इनटू दिस लॉ ऑफ नेचर, राइट? लाइक come back to life again.
Yes.
In whatever way. चाहे वो लिबरेशन, कम्युनिस्ट लिबरेशन की तरह फैशन रही हो, चाहे वो ओशो की क्रांति हो या जेके की सेल्फ अवेयरनेस हो, यू नो देयर इज मेनी ऑफ दोज आइडियाज. क्या है ये लॉ ऑफ नेचर? बिकॉज मेरे को कई बार ऐसा लगता है कि ये ना एक बड़ी ऑड जनरलाइजेशन है. और मैं मतलब अभी आपके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं कह रहा, आप बोलते हो तो मेरे को पता है इस बात की क्रेडिबिलिटी है. बट जब व्हाट्सएप पे मेरे को आता है ना, बेटा ये तो लॉ ऑफ नेचर है, XYZ ABC, वो हर चीज़ के पीछे लग जाता है. तुम 27 साल के हो गए हो, ये लॉ ऑफ नेचर है, शादी कर लो. तो मैं लॉ ऑफ नेचर क्या है और गुड और बैड लॉ ऑफ नेचर के कथन में कैसे डिफरेंशिएट करूं?
So I tell you, we are slightly getting away from doing an exercise with you, which will come back to.
No, right
sometime.
after this.
Huh? So I'll just say that first of all, if you were to look at it from a scientific inquiry perspective, what is the law of nature? First of all, you would have to define what is the law of nature, or what would you regard as a law of nature?
Fair.
Right.
Huh.
So what would you regard as a law of nature is that with which everything in the nature is governed, point number one, which is infallible in all circumstances, point number two. So now that has been the discovery, whether you say it quantum, entangled particles, God particles, etc. And today, the physicists agree that there is a common thing which drives or which is foundational, and everything is derivative of the same thing, right?
What is it?
So this, I would call it, from a lack of definition perspective, the material and energy cause of the cosmos. Not only universe, the whole beyond the universe. The material and energy cause of the cosmos is what governs the law of nature, with which everything is formed. This table is also formed with this, the living being also formed with this, non-living being also formed with this. If you keep slicing it, go down, you'll find molecule, you'll find matter, you'll find substance, you'll find molecule, you'll find electron, proton, neutron, and then you go to electron and subatomic particles, and then you find God particle, and then you'll find this is energy.
Right. This is movement of electrons.
This is energy, just the energy. Now that energy is infinitely small in some sense when you look at the things from a bigger thing, and that energy is so vast that it permeates everything, right? So to me, the law of nature is, what is that energy? So now if you look at something that causes everything in the cosmos to be built, everything in the cosmos to be its derivative. So what is it doing? It is perpetuating itself. It is perpetuating itself in a living being, non-living being, trees, man, human being, everything it is perpetuating. So one of the foundational law of nature to my mind is that everything wants to perpetuate itself.
Fair.
Right.
Right.
So even the energy with which the cosmos is made, that also wants to perpetuate itself.
कि उसको भी फैलना है और
उसको
अपने
भी
जैसे और
फैलना है,
बनाने हैं.
और अपने जैसे और बनाए. हर चीज लॉ बन जाए, हर चीज मेरे जैसी बन जाए.
बिल्कुल. हाँ.
मेंढक कितना ब्रीड करेगा वो चाहे सब चीज मेंढक बन जाए.
मेंढकों की दुनिया हो.
मेंढकों की दुनिया हो.
हाँ.
राइट. तो ऐसी वो कॉस्मिक एनर्जी की दुनिया हो. राइट. नाउ that energy which is the cause of the nature, cause of the cosmos, wants everything to become that energy, and that energy is what creates everything, right? And it wants everything to become that energy.
ठीक.
So this presents a cycle, right? Now how does everything becomes that energy? For that energy to be what it is, you need to satisfy certain tests, you need to have some learnings, you need to have, just like you would become a graduate, you did your graduation from a university.
Fair.
Where did you go?
Columbia University.
Right. And what did you study?
Psychology and economics.
Psychology and economics.
Yes.
Oh, very good. Huh? So you had a syllabus?
Yes.
Semester, syllabus had topics, subtopics, right?
Bilkul.
And you passed all of them.
Yes.
Then you became a graduate.
Yes.
Right. So similarly, to become that energy, there is a syllabus, prescribed syllabus that may have 600 semesters, which may have 3,000 topics or 30,000 topics or 3 million topics. And when this table goes through and passes all those tests, gets all that learning, this will become that energy. When you do all that learning, you will become that energy. So that is the design this has created, that it wants to perpetuate itself. To perpetuate itself, it has to get certain qualities imbued in the person or imbued in the things and imbued in the nature or imbued in the matter.
Right.
And once that matter goes through all those qualities, it becomes that energy.
That energy.
And that's what you say, oh my God.
That is God.
People call it God.
Right.
People call it God. That today I have merged. I am enlightened. I have merged. I have no existence separate from what it is. So just like people say that river, when it merges into sea,
अब वो river नहीं रही. वो sea हो गई.
वो sea हो गई. So it can't see. River can't see it merging into sea.
हाँ.
It can't.
River को क्या पता है?
River को क्या पता है? The moment it merges into sea, it no more remains a river.
Right.
Till such time it remains a river, it has not merged in the sea.
Right.
So it simply vanishes.
So this cosmic energy that seeks to perpetuate itself is what people call God.
People would call God, but this is my definition
Fair.
of the law of nature.
Right.
That law of nature is defining that everything should become like me, and that energy wants everything to become like that energy. It has prescribed the qualities of that energy, and once you become imbued with that quality, you'll become that energy. If this table gets started learning, then this table would become that energy.
Huh. What is the proof that this is a law? Like, how does one observe this law?
So I think the deductive logic of this, one, because it's a law of nature and it is not a law of science, right?
Huh.
The science has proven it so far up till a
Certain point.
right? Now the fact that it has proven it up till a certain point and it has not disproved it beyond that point. So
Right.
stay with that to have some positivity about it.
ठीक.
Some
समझ गया
acceptance
मैं.
of it.
हाँ, right.
Right.
Like
So
you have to have an open mind.
You have to have an open mind. So that is where I see that if from 1940s till now, we have done so much research on quantum particles, subparticles, etc., and every time we have come closer to this. And every time when we come closer to this, you're in that journey. You haven't yet arrived at that station where you actually have the scientific proof of this law,
Right.
but you are almost there, maybe a few miles
Away.
almost there, where you now know that everything is derivative of something common.
Right.
Everything is derivative of something common. यहाँ तक तो है ना scientific proof.
हाँ.
But so everything is derivative of something common is quite a distance you have traveled to say this table is also that which Prakhar is.
Huh. Huh. It is very similar to philosophy में argument होता है prime mover का कि अगर ये सृष्टि बनी तो उससे पहले भी तो किसी ने धक्का मारा होगा उस पहले एटम को जिससे बिग बैंग और फिर वो वहां से प्राइम मूवर आर्गुमेंट कहते हैं इसको गॉड के लिए राइट
No, but prime mover argument suffers from this, that there is a prime mover connotation or a belief.
राइट
Right. But
Right.
and that's why if you were to say energy, the energy's existence versus prime mover, to me it appears that anything when you
personified
personify, you run into a problem. Because the personification starts from a point where a lot of things have happened. Before that, it was non-personified. And if it was non-personified, and if you don't accept it as such that it is non-personified,
हाँ
then you would run into a problem. You'll
Right.
find inconsistency.
right
Whether
right,
it is
right.
you address it from a religious perspective or you address it from a philosophical perspective.
personification के साथ people start seeing themselves in there, people start attributing their goods and bads to it, and then it becomes a very political sort of situation. Like
Yeah,
with personification, the politicization is almost inevitable.
Yeah, because you're creating an identity.
Right.
And you're moving around an identity.
Right.
So instead of moving an identity, if you remain in that zone of the scientific discovery of a common thing of which everything is derivative, then you are much better and much satisfied with the discovery being consistent to what you might like to call God, but not personify it.
Without personifying
Yeah.
it. Fair. Should we do the exercise?
So I just wanted this exercise to be done by you here, and you would better do it on a piece of paper and pen rather than on your iPad.
Why is that?
And this is magic.
This
Once
is-
you do it, you will find why is that.
Because the reason we said to record on iPad is ताकि हम इस पे iPad पे screen record करके भी इसको क्या उस पे डाल पाएं.
चलो. So
You sure that's not going to be a big deal? Na?
No, it's not going to be a big deal so long as you write in your hand.
Yeah, I will write in my hand.
Magical part is, howsoever hard you try, you can't give a wrong answer.
Okay.
Howsoever hard you try, you can't give a wrong answer. That is the magic of the questions.
Fair. And the end goal is to arrive at
No end goal. You
There's
don't
no
worry.
end goal.
There's no end goal. You don't
Sirf-
worry about the end goal. End goal will grow on you.
ठीक है.
No, you don't need to find that there is a destination. There's no destination.
ठीक है.
Right. Okay. So write the name of the animal that you love.
I don't know if I love. Okay, you know, can I write more than one?
No, just one.
One.
Whatever comes to your mind first.
Okay.
And then write 5 attributes of that animal that you like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
This is 3 right now.
No, so 3 come easy. 4th and 5th takes a bit of time, but take your time.
जानवरों की इतनी characteristic. And I have to like these characteristics.
Yes.
Okay. Fair.
Right.
Right.
Now, you visualize, this is the question number 2. Huh?
Yes.
Now you visualize a hero in your mind, and it could be a real life person, mythological character, religious character, philosophical character, imaginary character, anything. Star Wars, hero, whatever. You visualize a hero in your mind. So hero is somebody he's endowed with lots of things that you emulate or you want to emulate, etc. So your hero is right there in your mind. Now when your hero is endowed with so many things in him, you still want, यार इतना गजब का आदमी है ना, but I want him to become this. With all these endowments that he has, I want him to become a fighter. I want him to become a peacemaker. I want him to become a calm person, whatever. So what do you want your hero to become? Just write that word.
My hero can be a mythological character.
Yes. So I want my hero to become what? He's endowed with so many things, and he's such a great, grand, majestic thing or person, right? I want all his endowment, resourcefulness to be used, and if he becomes this, oh my God, that will be great.
Can I tell you who I'm thinking about?
No,
I'm
you don't need to tell me. You
Achha,
just write what you want him to become. Just 1 or 2 words. I want him to become this.
Okay, I'm thinking of what I want him to become.
Yes.
I don't know. Can I want them to do? Okay, you know what? I'll write it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So you want him to become doer of this. Right. Okay. Very good. Now next you move and think of something in nature, something of natural occurrence. Sun, moon, star, galaxy, tree, leaf, flower, earth, mine, ocean, anything in nature. Anything in nature that you rever. What a thing, yaar. Huh?
Do I find it beautiful or
No, you have an affinity to it.
ठीक है? Any affinity, na?
Any affinity. You have an affinity to it. Now think of that thing in nature, and if you were to become the voice of that thing, if it's a tree, right? And if you become a voice of a tree, and then you were to say that for tree, on behalf of tree, you are representing tree, and you want to say and announce to the whole world, what does it do for the ecosystem? What does it do to the community? What does it do? So what does a tree do? So whatever is your thing in nature, if you become a person to advocate for it, what does it do in the ecosystem? What would you say that what does it do in ecosystem? Right. Now, come to the last, this is the fourth question. When people praise you, and sometimes they praise you in front of you, sometimes behind your back, you may not know exactly what they say, but whatever you think they may say. What are the 5 things they say about you when they praise you? That Prakhar is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you write a sentence. I am, leave the space in order to leave the space. And after the word I am, you write what you wanted your hero to become. And after in order to, you write what you said the thing in the nature does. And write it, even if it doesn't make a good English, write it. We'll tease it a little bit.
Okay.
Now read the sentence.
I am elaborative in order to bring rightful joy and break to people's life or to life in general.
Right. So I am elaborate in order to bring joy to people. Can I shorten it like that?
Yeah, fair.
Right.
Right.
So now underline this and use use this 2 letters LP.
LP.
LP, right? And the 5 things that you wrote, people say when they praise you, write CS.
LP and CS.
CS are those 5 things. Just put them in the box.
ठीक है.
The 5 things you have already written. The 5 things.
अच्छा इनको बस इन्हीं को मैं सर्कल कर दूं.
Just yes.
So ये CS है.
CS है.
और ऊपर वाले LP है.
नहीं, नीचे वाला sentence is LP.
LP, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And the ऊपर वाला
हाँ जी.
is CV.
The top वाला.
The top वाला.
Animal वाला.
Animal वाला. Just 5 those things.
This is CV.
CV.
ठीक है.
Now in those 5 things, just read out those things and you'll find some pattern, right? So what are those 5 things?
So the animal was lion, and the 5 things I found was strength, speed, bravery, royalty, and majestic appearance.
Yeah. So
Right.
strength,
Speed.
speed, bravery.
Yes.
So strength, speed, bravery as similar category,
Right.
to some extent.
Roughly.
Right? Strength, speed, bravery. Royalty and majestic is another category.
Yes.
So if you were to divide it in 2 parts, you would get 2 parts. First 3 strength, bravery, speed,
Right.
and second royalty and majestic.
Yes.
Right? So now look at this, and you did say something. I'll not remind you what did you say, but I'll ask you a question. So far, what has been your happiest moment in life? Where you really felt, "Kar beta, kya cheez hai tu?"
Every day. I don't know if I can pinpoint to the happiest moment in my life.
Whatever is occurring now.
I think graduating out of Columbia, like
Right,
really making
right,
that work
right,
was very,
right,
very proud.
right, right. So now look at this. Bravery, strength. The three things that you first said. Bravery, strength, and speed. Bravery, strength, and speed. What do they indicate? They indicate achievement.
Yes.
They indicate a sense of achievement. Being able to do it again and again with confidence.
Right.
Right.
Massive.
Massive. Right. And the second two things that you said, majestic and royalty, which people envy.
Right.
Which people see.
People can see.
People can see.
It's the acknowledgement.
It's visible.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Now, those are the 5 qualities that define your core values. And you would be able to trace, and that's the exercise I leave it to you with, and I help people do it over 6 months to 1 year. When you live, just do this every day. Before going to bed, scan your day in your mind and see what were the happy moments, satisfying moment to you. And you will find that the emotional experience that you were getting around that time or event or incident or whatever would be a derivative of these.
So you are saying कि जो मेरे दिन के सबसे अच्छे moments होते हैं, if I were to like scan and retrospectively observe,
Right.
they would have something to do with either this majesty, royalty का जो duopoly है,
Right.
या फिर strength और speed
Right.
और bravery
Yes.
वाली.
So something you will feel very happy where strength, bravery, speed, the sense of achievement. कर दिया हाँ मेरे को बड़े मजे आते हैं कर दिया
Yes,
है ना?
करके दिखा दिया.
राइट सो वो वाला मूवमेंट तेरे को बहुत हैप्पीनेस देगा क्या लोग देख के कहेंगे
मेरा सारा काम ही of being seen है. हाँ,
right,
right.
right.
I enjoy this
Right.
so much, right?
So this is actually defining what you should choose to do. So amongst many things that you may have to do, if you choose to do anything which gives you an experience of emotion, of sense of achievement, swiftly, confidently, massively doing it, that will give you a lot of satisfaction. And doing what? That gives visibility to you.
Right.
And that is what would give you great satisfaction and happiness is what defines your core value. So when I said that what this will lead to, this part of the discussion leads you to have a lighthouse in your hand. What would make you happy?
Wow.
Anything that you choose in your life, career, family, if you're able to see that this is the emotional experience, the derivative of this. If you put a thesaurus on these, you'll find the derivatives. Right?
ठीक.
So if the emotional experience of this genre is going to occur to you, go for it. You'll love it. You'll be immersed in that.
Perfect.
So that's the first part of it.
So
And
these
we
are
call it
core values. ठीक है.
The second part of the 5 things, just say them once more.
So the CS part, जो
Yes.
5 things that people say about me are confident, smart, articulate, curiously minded and ambitious.
Right. Confident, smart. Just put them slightly together.
Together,
kind of,
okay.
huh? Confident, smart.
Articulate
Articulate, curious,
and ambitious.
ambitious. Huh? So articulate, curious are
Somewhat similar.
Somewhat similar. Huh?
I think curious and ambitious are somewhat similar.
Curious, ambitious, and articulate.
Right.
So now, within these 3 sets, and there is, it's not important that how we bucket them,
Right.
but I'm just bucketing it to help you see it yourself. When you bucket these, you will find that when you choose to do whatever you do, if you employ these core strengths, you would be able to do it immersively without feeling fatigued, burdened about it. You can do it for weeks without feeling burdened about it, without feeling fatigued about it. हफ्तों कर सकता है ये without feeling कि यार क्या कर रहा हूँ, कहाँ जिंदगी में फंस गया. You will never get that feeling when you are using these as your core strength. So your core strength, when you say, is confident, smart, articulate. Right? Confident, smart, articulate. This core strength, I'm just illustrating it. confident, smart, articulate core strength doesn't have a core strength of being aggressive.
Right.
Right. So मैं नीचे जाके ना उस साली भीड़ को तमाशा बना दूंगा. And if your car is parked and there's so much of crowd there and you want to remove your car from the park, if you use this, यार बात सुन, मेरी बात सुन, you'll articulate and do it, you'll take your car out, you'll not feel burdened. On the other hand, if your core strength were to be aggression, you'll say, मैं जात के बताता हूँ.
Right.
हैं? हटो यहाँ से. क्या तमाशा बना रखा है तुमने? And then you will feel satisfied. And that will be your core strength. And in that core strength, you will achieve the same purpose of removing your car.
Right.
In this core strength, when you will do, you will be far more effective. Now, consider it in a corporate setting. You have a boss whose core strength is aggressive. उसको कार हटवानी है तेरे से.
गाली देगा?
वो कहेगा प्रखर जाके सारा तमाशा बना दे इनका. Because that's how he is guiding you. That's how he is instructing you, and he is your boss. He will like you to play aggression there, but that's not your core strength. You will feel so burdened कि साला क्या कर रहा हूँ मैं इसको जाके ये इसका दो एक सरदार लोग हैं उनको स्मार्टली समझाता हूँ, इसको हटा यार, क्या तमाशा है, मैं ले जाऊँगा गाड़ी. You would be burdened and less efficient and less efficacious because you are not using your own core strength. You are being guided to use the core strength of your boss.
Very interesting.
So therefore, if you had a discovery that these are your core strength, and if you had an empowerment to tell your boss, don't worry na, car hatani hai,
मैं करवा दूंगा.
मैं करवा, don't worry, leave it on me, I'll get it done. Then your play out would be very different.
It is so fascinating to me because I had never thought कि कोई चीजें ऐसे as such कोई burdening style और unburdening style भी होता है काम करने का. Because that would probably determine मैं कितनी देर और कितने लंबे
Immersive तरीके से कर सकता हूँ उसको.
Right.
You'll be completely immersed in that.
और उस immersion में एक मेरी metaphysics के हिसाब से एक उसमें divinity भी है, like you appear closer to God in certain ways.
Because you are immersive.
Right.
So this is the second part of the lighthouse that I say that in exercise I give people. First is, what should you choose to do? What should you choose to do?
Is
the
the
things,
sentence.
no, the things that give you the emotional experience of your core value.
Wow. Okay.
That's what you should choose to do.
Right.
The first CVs.
Which is for me strength, speed, bravery, majestic,
Right,
and royalty. Right.
right.
Those are the things I should choose to do.
You should choose to do.
Fair.
And you should be careful. So I'll tell you another example. I want to illustrate this to you. Now, strength, speed, bravery. If you just look at the English dictionary meaning of this, you'll miss it out completely. But if you look at, as I said, the bhav of this, the variations to this, you'll fall in place. So I'll give you a very starking example how to actually use it for your life. So I was doing this exercise with one of the top shot guys, retired as a chairman of a large corporation and now serving as director in very, very large companies in India. So his one of the core strength was beauty.
Very interesting.
Right? Beauty. And he didn't know, yeah, I'm a director, independent director in a company. How does the beauty relate to me?
Huh.
And it took just few minutes for him to realize how in his role as an independent director, can you imagine how does beauty relate to it?
I can't think of how you would find beauty in the Companies Act of 2013.
And you do. And how's that? I'll tell you.
How?
So when you see beauty, what do you see in beauty? A harmony.
Harmony. Yes.
A symmetry.
Right.
A harmony. A scheme. Right. Now I asked him, you're a director. You have faced this many times. People present to you the financials. They would say, these are the related party transactions. ये ऐसे होता है, company law में ऐसे होता है, income tax में ऐसे होता है. I think, what are you looking for? And how do you feel about it? If it tells you three things which are inconsistent to each other, you feel uneasy.
Right.
You ask a question, you feel irritated. When he presents to you the three things which are intertwined, woven well, You feel good about it.
Right.
You don't feel irritated.
Yes.
That's the connotation of beauty.
I think the perception of beauty is it fits. ऐसा लगता है कि
It
कुछ
fits.
fit हो गया.
कुछ
बस,
fit हो
fit
गया
हो
ना?
गया. Right. You can't explain it.
You
but
can't
fit हो गया.
fit हो
Right,
गया.
Right.
Now that fit, he wasn't able to recognize as an English language. He couldn't recognize it as beauty.
Beauty. सही.
So,
Right.
so since then, I have started telling people that when we do this exercise, if you are unable to get in touch with me or remain in touch with me, do some self-help, put a thesaurus with you, expand these words from a thesaurus.
हाँ मतलब इनको general meaning and
हाँ.
then there are derivative words
Derivative
that kind of
words.
mean the same but like
Right.
one of them would fit.
One of-
Yes.
one of- And that's how you make the actual real life decision. So the first part of the lighthouse is, what do you choose to do? You choose to do what gives me this emotional experience. And how do you do that? You do that uses your core strengths.
Right.
So you're sorted in life. You know now through your lighthouse what should you choose to do
Right.
and how should you do it.
Right.
What else do you need in life?
Right.
So I call it a lighthouse with which you can make your life house. And the last part, the LP you wrote.
Right. The LP. What is the LP?
Can you read the sentence?
So the sentence is, I am elaborative in order to bring rightful joy, right, to life. Rightful joy.
What is this anchoring? I am elaborative. I am elaborative. And again, look at this word elaborative with your ability to do massive things.
Right.
So it flows from your core value. And what is the LP's life purpose?
Right. Life purpose. Okay.
Your life purpose is to actually make things happen. Make things happen in a manner that brings life's joy, rightful joy to people. So when you use the word rightful, you're actually using the rightful to steer away from the aspect that like I said, getting a murderer.
No. What I mean there, because I chose rain. Rain was my natural thing. And what I think every time it rains is that, this is nature's way of saying, relax. Like, don't take your life too seriously. The clockworks keep going, right? Don't take that so heavily. Today is the day where you breathe and enjoy nature.
So that's what you were right. Rightful means in your entitlement.
In the grand scheme
In the
of
grand
things,
scheme
this has
of
arrived
your
at the right
entitlement.
time.
This is your rightful.
Yes. It has arrived at the right time and you deserve this and there is no two ways about
so
it.
you are
There's no
saying-
duality.
So this is great. So now look at this. When you define this as a life purpose, to be elaborative, to do things, to make things happen, which give rightful joy to people around you, to people you interact with, the people you want to make a difference to. That's your purpose of life.
Right.
Such a grand, magnificent purpose.
Wow.
And
That is
now,
so interesting.
now when you see all this, all of this is coming from where? It's coming from nature. Animal, a product of nature. A thing in the nature, a product of nature. Life purpose, your hero is your own visualization, which comes from these aspects of nature which you have experienced. So when I said law of nature, what has law of nature made you? Law of nature has made you this. And these core values and core strength, I can tell you, you go back to yourself and your family, other people's history. You will find they have been living in this zone by and large in their happy moments. And this can't be changed.
Wow.
You can't change it by training, you can't change it by upbringing, you can't change it by study, you can't change it by practice. In your happiest moments, in your best moments, in your enjoyable moment, in your stress-free moments, you inquire people in their 20s, 30s, 80s, they would be living in this range of the words.
In the LP range of things.
In the LP and CS
and CV and all
range,
these things.
Right. CS, CV would be more easily identifiable. LP would be a little difficult to identify initially. But you will feel that when people are actually they're enjoying it. They are in their CS, CV
Wow.
range.
That is so... Because I can tell you, now when I think about it, some of the happiest momentary pleasures I've had is, for instance, streaming. So I stream karta tha, uncle, I would just switch on the camera, speak for a couple of hours, anything and everything I wanted to speak. That's how I met Ansh. That's how I met Kunal. All the guys who work for me or work alongside me came from there. And I was so happy. I was so happy just thinking out aloud for people's pleasure. And people would tell me, listening to you makes me look at life again in a very different way. And मतलब मैं obviously यहाँ आना नहीं चाह रहा था इस exercise के through, but it is surprising that so much of this hits home very straight. And this is coming from a skeptic. I have always thought these exercises are somewhat self-fulfilling. कि आदमी अपनी मर्जी से अपने आप को अच्छा दिखाने के लिए अपनी अच्छी चीजें लिख देता है. I think similarly for psychology, as we've discussed before. So I want to ask you, how practical is this? Have you done this for many years? Because I remember एक बार बचपन में भी आपने मेरे को कराया है.
So I have done it for many years, but I have done it recently with variety of people. So I have done it with the students, I have done it with the principals of the medical colleges, I have done it with the industrialists, I have done it with the chairman of the companies, large companies, directors, etc. And slum kids. Right. And I found that male, female, any year, caste, creed, background, it resonates with people. People do say, yeah, I never realized. Actually, I am this.
Right.
It resonates with people. And I found it is because it's resonating with so many people. And I have done it with the strangers. For you, I have some familiarity as a child, but I've done with the strangers and it resonates with them.
Right. And is it always this look of surprise?
Yes, it's always this look of surprise and this look of never before kind of experience.
ये आपने पता है मतलब बिना बताए ना अंदर से सच निकल ऐसा लगता है कि अरे मैंने तो अपने आप को सच बोल दिया, पर उसके लिए मेरे को एक इल्यूजन की जरूरत थी ताकि मैं खुद से वो बात फ्रैंकली ऑनेस्टली कर पाऊं.
Right. So it goes deep into your gut to take it out.
Yeah, it is so interesting because the एनिमल को डिस्क्राइब करने के लिए 5 चीजें कहाँ से लेके आऊं मैं. मैं अभी तो मैं डॉग लिखने वाला था और मैं लॉयल्टी बोलने वाला था. That is so interesting. और ये corporate settings में is this very common in the corporate settings?
Yeah, it's not. This is not. I have myself gone through the corporate career.
Right.
We've done lots of exercise, Thomas exercise, Mentisa exercise, IQ exercise, personality exercise. Most of them are built around the theories of the psychology. Most of them are built around the traits, psychology traits, hierarchy, etc., etc. And every time I myself went through that, I didn't find something which is actually foundational. So this is my journey in finding in the real life tangible world, how could I get to that foundational thing which doesn't give me an input the career I should choose, which doesn't give me an input this house I should live or city I should live. It should be more foundational. So but what is more foundational? Then I stumbled on this.
But for the sake of entertainment, I want to ask, because I rarely interact with people who work in corporate and, at the level at which you do. How must one think about or choose their career? How does that question...
Same.
Isi
say. So simply isi say. So I tell you. So as I said in the beginning, that my career to begin with was a tax consultant.
Yes.
Right. So how as a tax consultant, you would live some values and get this experience?
It is not in your natural course of life.
That's what I also thought in the beginning. Because as a young professional or budding careerist, I wanted to become a doctor.
Achha.
Right. So I write the medical exam, the competitive exam. Got some 786 rank that gave me a very poor medical college entry. And I didn't like to go there. So I came back home. So father was sitting with one of his friend. So he said, "Koi baat nahi, agli baar de dena exam." So I said, no, I don't want to waste my time. I want to be earning member before a certain age, and therefore that won't fit in my plan. So he said, "Fir tum CA kar lo." So I didn't know till then what the CA is. So he said, "CA kya hota hai?" The CA bhi doctors ki tarah hote hai. Can you imagine? CA bhi doctors ki tarah hote hain. And that gave curiosity. So I asked out of that curiosity, how? He said, CA practice भी कर सकते हैं और वो अपना काम भी कर सकते हैं. So डॉक्टर की तरह होगी ना, आप प्रैक्टिस भी कर सकते हो, नौकरी भी कर सकते हो. To that young mind, something is struck there. और 3 साल में हो जाता है. अरे वाह, फिर तो बात बन गई. हमने कहा चलो CA करते हैं, 3 साल में हो जाता है, हमारे प्लान में फिट हो रहा है. and will be earning member very soon. CA करनी शुरू कर दी. अब now you can imagine somebody who is coming seeking an emotional experience of so-called nobility in the profession of medicine,
And translating it into CA. Right.
translating into CA, where would you land?
I think it'd be a disappointment.
It would be disaster.
Yes.
It will be disaster. It took me some time, and that happened intuitively, not by doing an exercise like this. That happened intuitively, where I was able to relate the taxes with contribution to the society.
It was ये आपको philosophically bridge करना पड़ा.
Right.
हाँ.
और bridge हुआ, intuitively bridge हुआ. There was no exercise, there was no method, there was no process. But it got bridged intuitively. By paying taxes, what do? You give to the government. What does the government do? वो इतने गांव में बिजली नहीं आ रही, उस जमाने की बात बता रहा हूँ 30 years. इतने गांव में बिजली नहीं आ रही है, इतने लोग भूखे मर रहे हैं, इतने लोगों को मेडिसिन नहीं मिल रही है, इतने लोगों को एंटीसेप्टिक नहीं मिल रही है, इतने लोगों को डिसइंफेक्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं, इतने लोगों की क्रॉप खराब हो जाती है, ये हो जाता है. So all this is funded. So by getting people to pay taxes responsibly, you are actually making difference to those people.
Fair.
And that's where I thought the journey became stronger and stronger to say, you're not missing something here. You still are getting the same emotional experience, same satisfaction of making a difference. And that's why what we did earlier in the conversation, in this journey, I found that the government has been trying a lot for people to pay taxes responsibly, and no amount of policing is yielding good results in that. And that's why at this stage, I changed gears to say that how do we position taxes as important ingredient for survival of the businesses, so that businesses do it voluntarily rather than because they are being policed.
Yes. So the idea of having a transparent sort of job, शुरू में कह रहे थे ना, all things being equal.
Yes.
If one discloses the tax against the other and says we pay tax more responsibly, would you buy
That or not?
Right.
And
we
in
never-
that, I'll give another poser. And this was a real life study my research team did for 40 pharma companies, listed 40 pharma companies. All information is publicly available. You see the 6 years average rate of tax. You would expect that they would be in a reasonable range.
18%. I would expect कि
18-20%
AMT तो pay कर
होगा.
रहे होंगे, हाँ.
18-20% होगा. The range is 7% to 29%.
Okay.
In 40 pharma listed company in India, same market, same consumers, tax rate is 7% to 29%. Now, if I were to ask you that if all of those companies make similar cash flow, then which company would you like to buy?
If all things ceteris paribus, if all
Yes.
things being constant, then 29%.
29%.
क्योंकि उसका पैसा वापस मेरे पास आ रहा है.
मेरे पास
हाँ,
वापस आ रहा है.
right.
That's what you like.
Even by selfish accounts, उसका पैसा मेरे पास
मेरे
वापस
पास
आ
आ
रहा
रहा
है. हाँ.
No, that is the choice you will make. But that's the choice that is not apparent to people, because the people don't even know who paid 29% and who pays 7%.
Agreed.
So therefore, the mission that I am on is to tell people, don't consider tax as something which you are paying because you are being policed. Consider it as a catalyst to your business.
Right.
Consider it as a catalyst to your value.
हाँ.
एंड डिस्क्लोज इट वॉलंटरली. अपना वेबसाइट पे जहाँ लिखते हो ना, हम 150 साल पुरानी कंपनी है, फरीदाबाद में फर्स्ट कंपनी है, फर्स्ट वी मेड दिस, राइट देयर ऑल्सो हमने इतना टैक्स दिया है, इतना टोटल टैक्स देते हैं.
Right.
एंड व्हेन यू राइट दैट, व्हाट आर यू डूइंग?
You're signaling.
You're signaling. You are becoming standing out than your competition who is not writing that.
Right.
And tomorrow if your competition starts writing that,
Right.
and if they are not doing payment of tax right,
तो फिर उनको penalization होगी market में.
उनसे
Market will
market से
penalize.
penalize होंगे वो.
Right. और वो unavoidable penalty है.
One avoidable penalty. And you want that because their penalty then is your gain.
Right. पर अंकल आपको ऐसा नहीं लगता कि यहाँ पे एक बिजनेसमैन के दिमाग में the competition is between 1 rupee saved on avoiding taxes versus the value generated from disclosing 1 rupee of tax, and 1 रुपया बचा हुआ is far more valuable than देख मैंने 1 रुपया खर्च दिया है.
अब ये देखो ये वाली चीज जो है ना, this is the classical thinking.
हाँ.
This classical thinking will change when he would start seeing यार इसके फ्रिज ज्यादा बिक रहे हैं, इसके कम बिक रहे हैं. When he sees that, and this was a case study which happened in UK in Starbucks. There was some article published there where the customers, the young customers, the everyday goers to Starbucks, they understood that Starbucks was paying very little taxes in UK. And suddenly after publication of that article, Starbucks sales started going down. And they didn't quite understand why would that happen, because nobody related it to tax. And then they did some investigation and they found, oh yeah, people don't think that we are responsibly behaving in this country. And then they went to tax department in UK to say we want to pay more tax. They say, oh, how can you pay more taxes? This is illegal taxes that you're paying enough. Then they needed to do some other thing.
Charity करनी पड़ी होगी, whatever, right?
So the point I'm saying is, till such time this was a case study, nobody bothered about it. That 1 rupee tax saved is value for me.
Because sales are also recurring, na? Like 1 rupees tax paid.
Yes.
If it generates 5 rupees in sales later on, then that's a smarter business decision.
Or if 1 rupees tax paid makes you rank amongst the top scorer for getting green finance, makes you rank amongst the top scorer in the multiples. A company which is paying 29% tax, you said you like to buy that company.
Right.
Why?
But consumer decisions are fickle. I feel like यहाँ पे institutional decisions भी कुछ है, जैसे हाँ.
Institutional, your decision to buy 29% वाला company was an institutional decision.
Why?
Because you said that the company which is paying 29% tax, the tax comes back to you.
Right.
And,
अच्छा तो वो institutional.
So institutional decision है.
Right.
The other thing, perhaps your mind processed, but you couldn't surface it as much. If the cash flow is same for the company which is paying 29% tax and which is paying 7% tax, it means the company which is paying 7% tax, their cash flow is coming from really saving the taxes rather than from operating the business.
Right. It's not profitable by nature of running the business. It's profitable by nature of saving the taxes. Right.
So are you buying business or are you buying tax saving? What are you buying?
Right. But isn't that a fully functional, जैसे इसका Elon Musk के Tesla के साथ यही तो business model है ना, वो क्या carbon tax credits खरीद के.
That's a model which is coming into play, has been in play earlier also, that you do the tax play, etc. But leaving that aside, if these consumer, society, stakeholders, you said you will invest in that company which is paying more taxes. The consumer says that I'll buy from that company where I know he is responsibly paying taxes, as against the company I don't know, or as against the company I know which is not paying responsibly the taxes. Everything else being equal. Now, given that as a paradigm, the businesses would start paying taxes.
But अच्छा इसमें there is one more question I have. As a consumer, I am the last of the stakeholders. उससे पहले there is management, there is board of directors, there is bankers who have invested, so on and so forth. And I feel like, isn't it fair to say the pressure should come from more proximate stakeholders as opposed to the most, क्योंकि मैं अगर suppose मैं Coca-Cola की बात करता हूँ, my business to Coca-Cola is probably worth 1/1 billion. It is fractional to the point of being non-existent. What I think, and maybe take thousands of me, to be we are still in the 1/1,000,000th of contribution.
So if I were to ask you one thing, as a student of economics, what is most important for business?
It depends on if this is Faridabad economics or global economics.
Whatever.
Well, cash flow.
No.
Fir?
What is most important for business?
Profit.
Do as our exercise, which is so foundational. So foundational. Customer.
I see customer. Okay. I see.
Without customer, there is no business.
Right.
It's so foundational. So the customer is the remotest but most critical stakeholder of the business. And if the customer choice is anchored on your being seen as a responsible versus not so responsible tax person, the motivation for business, the highest amount that any business wants to remain stagnant or growing,
Right.
stable or growing, is on revenue.
Right.
It comes from customer.
Right. The core KPI is always revenue. Customer is always leading into,
right.
and customer centrality is the principle of
Right.
a business, right?
So what does the business do to get a customer?
Market itself,
Right.
right? Marketing
Right.
karenge, branding karenge, that kind
उससे
of
क्या?
stuff.
Marketing branding doesn't get you the customer.
Right.
Marketing branding creates a demand if there is a customer.
Right.
So if you are in a desert,
तो कितनी मार्केटिंग कर
तुम
लो,
कितनी मार्केटिंग कर लो,
कोई नहीं आ रहा. हाँ,
कोई नहीं आ रहा, कुछ नहीं
कस्टमर
बिकेगा.
एक्टिवेट हो जाएगा मार्केटिंग से.
Customer activate हो जाएगा.
हाँ.
But you as a business don't create a customer, or do you?
No.
You don't.
No. Natural demands do.
Natural demands.
To some degree, yes.
So how is the customer created?
कुछ लेवल पे तो भैया प्यास लगी है तो पानी के कस्टमर हो गए, कुछ भूख लगी है तो खाने के कस्टमर हो गए.
अरे भैया प्यास लगी है, वो पानी का कस्टमर भी तब कस्टमर होगा ना जब उसकी जेब में पैसे होंगे.
राइट, बिल्कुल
नहीं
सही
तो
बात है.
नहीं तो वो नदी ढूंढता रहेगा.
सही बात, सही
पानी
बात.
पीने के लिए.
हाँ.
है ना?
नाले से पिएगा.
नाले से पिएगा.
राइट.
राइट. चुरा के पिएगा.
राइट.
कस्टमर तो नहीं बनेगा.
राइट.
कस्टमर बनने के लिए तो जरूरी है उसके पास पैसे हो, नंबर 1.
100%.
और नंबर 2, he should have a willingness to pay.
यस.
अगर उसके पास पैसे भी हैं और उसकी बच्ची बीमार है
तो फिर तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते.
फिर तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते.
बिल्कुल.
He is a competing priority.
बिल्कुल.
अगर उसकी बच्ची नहीं भी बीमार है, उसको कल स्कूल जाना है, तो तब भी खर्च नहीं करेगा पैसे.
बिल्कुल.
कि इसके एडमिशन में पैसे देने पड़ेंगे.
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
So first thing, the most critical thing in a business is customer.
राइट.
The definition of customer is somebody who has money
एंड विलिंग टू पे.
and willing to pay.
राइट.
Now, and business doesn't do anything to produce that person,
फेयर.
and it is most critical for business. So do you see what are we dealing with?
राइट. तो मतलब
But
अगर
the
हाँ,
only thing that business does to create a customer is to pay taxes. When business pays taxes, the taxes go to people. That creates demand, number 1. When business pay taxes, the taxes create the system of law, the police,
Infrastructure, rule of law, right, all of that.
Rule of law, that creates a positive outlook.
and a stable ecosystem, right? Yeah,
ecosystem.
right. Yes.
So well-functioning economy, positive outlook creates willingness to spend. Having money in hand comes from the making money available to people, number of heads. How many heads have the money in their pocket?
Right.
That is done through your taxes.
There was a
So the point I'm making is this correlation of the businesses being most critical, the choice of the customer, who is the most critical part of business, making that dependent on responsible behavior for tax, and then feeding the taxes to create the cycle of getting more customer. If you understand it, I would see that the businesses would volunteer to disclose taxes much more to grow their business, not because the government wants them to pay.
right. And it also, this is my layman understanding of the Indian sort of corporate law business ecosystem. But मेरे को याद है when I was reading the Companies Act for my company secretary wali degree, it had just come out 2013 wala, and they had mandated corporate social responsibility at 2%. And it was a very celebrated sort of move when you would read context around that. And I was like, यार तुम responsibility, वो भी social responsibility beyond taxation, 2% net whatever the figure is, 2% of I think
Net profit.
Net profit, right? उसको mandate कर रहे हो.
Right.
It does not seem like that is some, like you are policing somebody to take up their social responsibility. इससे बढ़िया तो I think tax reform ही बहुत दिमाग, like I feel like if you simplify the tax code to a great degree, you might be able to produce more stable and recurring outcomes for tax every year.
Absolutely.
Because I also have found, and this is coming from budget discussions we discussed earlier, because I've seen Papa do this a lot, right? Every budget season, February onwards, he's super busy, and I'd sit and talk to him. And it seems like 25% of all finance bill is catching all the mistakes they made in the previous finance bill, and the next year is again catching, and it becomes this circular sort of 25% of all bureaucratic energies, resources, etc. are wasted in just catching your own tail. And that does not sound very interesting to me. But I feel like this is a very interesting proposal. I'm not sure what I completely think, but iski summary मेरे को ये समझ में आ रही है. Disclosure of taxation as social responsibility. That eventually helps create the ecosystem by sort of providing with the government with enough resources to build your roads, to build electricity, to allow for advertising or for that matter placements or shops or XYZ ABC to occur and so on.
No,
And-
I will just say that your summary is, you articulated a summary that was from a point of view which was external to business, this society.
Right.
I want to say that to my mind, the summary is more proximate to business. That the businesses grow when they have customers.
Right.
And customer preference, particularly the new gen customer preference, as you said, if you were to buy a fridge, you'll buy it from a company you know is more responsibly paying taxes. If the businesses want to grow, then demonstrating how responsibly they pay taxes is an access to grow their business.
Right. So it's not even indirect. आप कह रहे हो बिल्कुल ही direct और in fact probably
Proximate है.
हाँ probably principle एक है ये बिल्कुल center में से निकलता है.
Center में
business
से
के.
निकलता है ये.
Right.
It is an edge. It's an advantage. It's an advantage that you're leaving on table.
Right. Now that
Instead
I
of
think of it.
wooing your customers with that advantage that, look, I pay taxes so responsibly, that goes to your mates and that goes to your laborers and that goes to your driver and that goes to your people around the ecosystem. And that's why you care about me. That's why you want to buy goods from me.
Is this a phenomena that is more obvious now that you've said it? Is this a phenomena that's more obvious in this post-social media transparency world? Because if it is that obvious, why has that not occurred to anybody?
So it hasn't simply occurred for the first thing that you said. The mindset still is,
पैसा बचा लो.
पैसा बचा लो.
Common mindset.
And वो पैसा बचा लो mindset में क्या है? As you said, that your dad tells you that you keep making mistakes and then you keep plugging one thing and then the other thing. वो पैसा बचा लो के चक्कर में people start finding the loopholes.
Right.
And therefore, when you're dealing with the loopholes, then you don't want to be transparent.
No, definitely not.
So that is what is coming on the way.
क्योंकि तुम्हारे मन में चोर है, दाढ़ी में तिनका है.
दाढ़ी में तिनका, और तिनका क्यों है? वो बिल्कुल the sad point is, वो तिनका इस illusion की वजह से है कि टैक्स बचाने से मेरा बिजनेस बढ़ रहा है.
10-20% जो मैं बचा रहा हूँ off the top. हाँ.
टैक्स बचाने से मैं रिच हो रहा हूँ. ये illusion है.
Right.
Instead of thinking कि टैक्स दे के
पूरा इकोसिस्टम अमीर बनाया है.
पूरे इकोसिस्टम, मेरी सेल्स बढ़ जाएगी.
हाँ. That connection is not obvious.
That connection is not obvious. That connection is missing.
Right.
It is obvious to me.
Right.
It might now become obvious to you, I hope.
Fairly.
Right.
Yes, more and more.
Right.
More and more.
Right.
हाँ.
But I want that people should see that the new gen customer, like yours, somebody who has studied in Colombia, come back to India. If your preference is to buy it from a company you know is responsible tax behavior, then this is new generation customer, new generation stakeholders. And the companies which are in that zone of paying taxes responsibly, they are distinctly placed. They are on a different pedestal and they're leaving it on table. That's their distinction to stand out from their competition,
Right.
who may be still dealing with the loopholes.
And given how hot India is right now for nationalistic, social sort of, we want India
Phenomena,
to be better.
yeah.
Haan, right. Matlab, this is having observed the globe, right?
Right.
Like only a couple of months ago, I was sitting with people from all walks of life, from all parts of the world. Almost no other country is seeing the growth that we are. Indonesia, Bangladesh, India maybe are the three countries that see growth at this speed right now. Not even China.
Right.
And most other countries in the Middle East, Latin America are failing economically. There is not just a cultural sentiment behind India right now. There's not just a financial sentiment from the global investor community. But also there seems to be a lot of public, personal sentiment behind the growth of India. Every time we are buying an electronic, I'm looking for made in India. And this has been happening for maybe a couple of years, maybe since COVID, because the last time I was here was COVID. And I think this is probably a very good moment in the history of India to introduce this as social responsibility for businesses. Is this what you're focusing on in the next part of your career?
Yeah. This is one of the things other than the first exercise that we do. So I'm going to focus on that mainly. as a part of my next career, where I want to impart that to people, so that I want to gift this lighthouse of the core values and core strength and life purpose to people, so that they can live their life better,
Right.
understand themselves better, understand themselves at the foundational level, which can apply in variety of the things they deal in the life. And the second part is, I want to foster this in the ecosystem, in the organization, with the stakeholders, that paying taxes responsibility is not a responsibility because you are being policed. Paying taxes responsibly is good for your growth of the business.
Growth of the business in the long term, in the going concern sense of things. And you say, because I don't think we've told people the next part of your career, and I mean, in the introduction, it'll lay out the existing part of your career, but you retire very soon.
I retire very soon.
How soon is very soon?
March 31st, coming March 31st.
So March 31st, 2024, you retire as partner at PwC.
Right.
And you served PwC 25 years now?
Yes.
Exactly 25 years.
I've served about 30 years.
30 years. Before that, it was Coopers.
Yes.
And then it merged into
Right,
Price Waters.
right.
Okay. And so you served the company for 30 years and now you move
I
on to
served PwC for 25 years.
Right.
Yes.
But the organization at large, pre-merger, post-merger.
In the tax arena, 35 years.
35 years.
Yes.
And what's your fondest reflection of your career? Do you see it as a very healthy, have you enjoyed doing this? How does one look like? Every
bit of it. So what happened is, from, as I said, in my journey, I was always curious and wanted to make difference. So though I was part of the tax, but I changed role almost every 3-4 years.
Right.
And I did the tax role, and then I said, what is the adjacency to it? Then I thought that everybody is using technology, but tax people are not using technology. The technology came to the finance department 30 years ago, but to tax department, it wasn't there.
Right.
So I shifted my gear to say that I want to introduce technology for tax.
And tax departments, you mean government tax departments?
Government tax department was happening slowly.
Right.
So there was a project that we did for the government for that. But more importantly, even the businesses never paid attention.
Right.
The tax people were not there in the technology table.
No.
So I then started something of that kind.
Right.
Then I did something in public policy.
Right.
I did something in risk management. And the latest thing that I'm doing is actually propelling this school of thought that paying tax responsibility is not policing. It's actually responsible behavior for growing business.
Well, Uncle, I want to wish you the best of luck for that. If
Thank
you
you so
ever
much.
need a microphone to talk about your ideas, you're always welcome here.
Thank you so
I hope
much.
my young audience has enjoyed this rather intellectual discussion. Thank you so much, Uncle.
Thank you
This
so
has been
much.
a pleasure.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thanks.
If you're passionate about conversations like this, and if you think, Prakhar, I'd like to listen to more conversations like this, then I must tell you, there is a subscribe button right here and a bell icon right next to it. And it's your moral obligation to press that. Press the subscribe button and I'll see you around for more conversations just like this.